Why is sourdough so good for us and why we should bake it in every single home around the world? Well, if you wondered why so many people are going into sourdough nowadays, especially after the COVID pandemic, it's only for one main reason. It's something that we've been doing for centuries, thousands of years actually. The Egyptians were the first to make sourdough, the first that suddenly started to make sourdough. And it's incredible that at the beginning of the 19th century, we have stopped making sourdough because the population was growing and we had to make bread within 2 hours. And that's when baker's yeast has been introduced. And that's when I believe, this is my own theory, that the gluten intolerance started appearing in the world because the grains in the flour don't get fermented as we used to. So we have no evolved by eating grains that are not fermented, that are not treated, that are not pre-digested by other enzymes, fungi and lactic acid bacteria. So let's go to point number 1. What's the main difference between commercial bread and sourdough bread? At the core level, the baker's yeast only creates the Saccharomyces, which is the fungi that creates the gas by eating the carbohydrates that are contained into the flour. These fungi digest the carbohydrates, and digesting the carbohydrates, they produce gas, just like we do. We eat, we produce gas, and then we expel it from our butts. The same thing do the microbes, do the fungi, and so on. So creating this gas, the gluten structure holds onto the gas, and the bread and the dough proves and puffs up. That's the main reason. But what happens during sourdough fermentation? We have two basic elements. We have the lactic acid bacteria on one side and we have the fungi on the other side. The fungi, as we said previously, it's also called Saccharomyces, and they do also eat carbohydrates and produce the gas. Lactic acid bacteria on the other side, they work on the protein contained into the flour. These two alive creatures work together in symbiosis, creating one ecosystem that also modifies the ingredients. The is that the lactic acid bacteria and the fungi modify the starches and enzymes that are contained into it. This is the main core important. And now we go to step number 3, that we understand why and what happens during the modification of these starches and enzymes. Let's mention whole grain, for example. Whole grain is such a nutritious bread, we all know that. But suddenly, at the beginning of 1940, 1950, we started eating only bread made with white flour. White flour is basically the flour that is obtained from the same grain, which is deprived of the husk, of the germ, basically all the fiber that is essential for our peristalsis, the movement that our intestine does to evacuate. But it's very important to know that whole grain, wholemeal bread have a lot of minerals such as potassium, magnesium and zinc, which are beneficial to our health. No, the main difference when we eat a whole grain bread is not the fact that we can have a lot of minerals, but the fact that if you don't eat it made by sourdough bread, we can't absorb the mineral because the bread is full of phytic acid. Don't know if you ever heard of it. It's an obstacle to the body to the absorption of the mineral. But during the sourdough fermentation, the wonderful things that happen is that the lactic acid bacteria actually reduce the phytic acid by 24 to 50% compared to the baker's bread, compared to the commercial bread. And that's something that you really need to keep in mind because it's essential for our health. We need minerals, we need vitamins, we need enzymes. And why would we want to deprive ourselves from these elements just because we want to eat commercial bread? So you don't have to make it if you don't have time. You don't have to try to learn it, although you will benefit from it, your family will benefit from it, and the generation coming down the line will benefit from it. But you can buy sourdough from an artisan baker. You can buy sourdough from someone that you trust, a baker that you trust. Why eating something that's unhealthy when we know it's unhealthy? It's a paradox. So you are empowered today not only to learn a few knowledge, not only to improve your skills, but this channel wants to offer you more interesting facts about sourdough. So if you want to learn how to make your first loaf, please consider watching this video and don't forget to subscribe and push the like button. This will really help us. I'll see you next time. Ciao.